If you ever thought that you couldn't buy a motorcycle that will last the test of time for less than $1,500, then you are totally wrong. You don't need a fancy, expensive bike to ride like a pro. Sometimes the best motorcycles are the ones that just keep going, year after year, mile after mile. In this video, we're looking at 10 bikes you can grab for under $1,500 that are simple, reliable, and built to last. Starting with number 10, we have the Honda Rebel 250. The Honda Rebel 250 is one of those bikes that just makes sense, especially if you're on a tight budget but still want something that will last. It is lightweight, approachable, and simple to ride. The Rebel has been a favorite among beginners and seasoned riders alike for decades. Its 234 cubic centimeters air-cooled parallel twin engine isn't going to set any speed records, but it's smooth, forgiving, and remarkably durable. You don't need to be a mechanic to keep this thing running. Most of the maintenance is easy, and parts are cheap and widely available, which is exactly what you want when you're shopping with a price range below $1,500. Finding a used Rebel 250 for $1,500 or less is completely realistic if you're patient and willing to go through local listings. These bikes are everywhere, so whether it's a high-mile commuter or a lightly cared-for garage queen, you can find one that suits your needs. One of the best things about this bike is that fuel economy is solid, handling is nimble, and the upright seating makes it comfortable for city streets or short highway runs. When you're shopping, the main things to check are simple. Make sure the carburetor is clean, the battery and wiring are in good shape, brakes and tires aren't worn out, and the frame and suspension are solid. Other than that, the Rebel 250 is ready to ride for years with minimal fuss. It's proof that you don't need a flashy bike or a big budget to have something reliable, fun, and surprisingly tough. Moving on, at number 9, we have the Suzuki GS500E. The bike right here is a standout choice for riders seeking a reliable, budget-friendly motorcycle that doesn't skip out on performance. This bike offers a perfect balance between power and manageability, making it an excellent option for both beginners and seasoned riders looking for a practical ride that won't break the bank. Under the tank, the GS500E houses a 487 cubic centimeters 4-stroke air-cooled parallel twin-cylinder engine. It utilizes dual Mikuni BST-33SS carburetors and a 6-speed manual transmission to deliver a smooth and responsive ride. The engine produces a maximum power of 46 horsepower at 200 revolutions per minute, providing reliable power for city commuting and chill weekend rides. Weighing in at around 372 pounds wet, the GS500E is nimble and easy to handle, making it ideal for urban environments and tight corners. Its upright riding position and comfortable seat height further enhance its suitability for daily use. In terms of reliability, the GS500E has garnered positive feedback from riders who have attested to its reliability. When searching for a used GS500E under $1,500, it's advisable to inspect the condition of the carburetors, brakes, and suspension components. Regular maintenance and proper storage can ensure this bike continues to serve reliably for many years. In summary, the Suzuki GS500E offers a compelling package for riders seeking an affordable, dependable motorcycle. Its balanced performance, ease of maintenance, and robust engine make it a standout choice in the used motorcycle market. Let's have a look at number 8, the Kawasaki Ninja 250R. When people talk about the best starter sport bike, the Kawasaki Ninja 250R often pops up, and for good reason. It's a compact, reliable sport bike with just enough power to get your heart pumping, yet forgiving enough not to scare you off. At its core is a liquid-cooled, DOHC, 248 cubic centimeters parallel twin engine with dual Keihin CVK30 carburetors tuned for smooth, linear power and durability. It pumps out a maximum power of 37.4 horsepower, and although it might not sound much on paper, it pulls through the gears, loves to climb into higher revs, and has no problem cruising at highway speeds if you ask it to. But what makes the Ninja 250R a legend in the used market is its bulletproof reliability. These bikes are known to rack up tens of thousands of miles with nothing more than routine oil changes, chain care, and valve checks. The parts are cheap, the maintenance is simple, and because Kawasaki sold so many of them, replacement parts are everywhere. For a budget rider, that's the best thing ever. Of course, buying one used means you should check for signs of abuse. Many of these bikes were owned by new riders, which means the occasional drop or rough shifting. Still, their tough design usually shrugs off beginner mistakes without major damage. At the end of the day, the Ninja 250R isn't just a starter bike. It's a dependable, fun, and stylish machine that proves you don't need a big budget to own a sport bike with character. It's the kind of motorcycle you buy cheap and ride for years. Number 7. Honda CB250 Nighthawk. The Honda CB250 Nighthawk is one of those bikes that never shouts for attention, but wins people over the longer you live with it. It's simple, dependable, and just about the perfect ride. First introduced in the early 90s, Honda kept it in production for over a decade, and that longevity alone says a lot. Training schools like the Motorcycle Safety Foundation practically kept fleets of these because they could take endless abuse from new riders and still fire up the next morning. Its engine is a 234 cubic centimeters air-cooled parallel twin small, sure, but incredibly reliable. It makes around 20 horsepower at 0 revolutions per minute with torque peaking near 500. You're definitely not winning any race on it, but you don't buy a Nighthawk for speed. You buy it instead for smooth, predictable power delivery that makes city riding effortless. Twist the throttle, and it responds without drama. On the highway, it'll cruise at 60 to 65 miles per hour comfortably, but if you try to push past that, it might have a little glitch or issue. One of the Nighthawk's biggest strengths is its sheer ease of use. The upright seating, low 29-inch seat height, and light weight around 291 pounds wet make it extremely beginner-friendly. That's why so many riders still look back on it as their first love in motorcycling. Even for experienced riders, it makes a great daily commuter because of its practicality. But of course, it isn't perfect, especially as a used bike. Braking is handled by a single front disc and rear drum, which can feel underwhelming compared to modern setups. Long highway trips may leave you wishing for more horsepower, but the flip side is how incredibly low maintenance it is. Basic oil changes, valve checks, and carb cleaning are all you need to keep it running. Owners have reported these bikes easily lasting well past 0 miles with nothing more than routine care. If you can scoop up a Nighthawk 250 under $1,500, you're getting one of the most dependable and beginner-friendly motorcycles ever built. It's the kind of bike that may not thrill you at first glance, but it grows on you, and before long, you realize it's exactly what you needed all along. At number 6, we have the Yamaha Virago 535. The Yamaha Virago 535 is one of those bikes that quietly built a cult following over the years. Introduced in the late 80s and running through the 90s, it wasn't the flashiest cruiser on the market, but it offered something a lot of riders appreciated: a manageable, reliable, and stylish mid-size V-twin that didn't cost a fortune to own or maintain. At the heart of the bike is a 535 cubic centimeters, air-cooled SOHC V-twin engine producing about 37 horsepower with 32 pound-feet of torque. That might not sound like much, but the Virago delivers its power in a smooth, torquey way that makes city riding and cruising around town a joy. The shaft drive is a standout feature in this class, sparing riders from the chain maintenance most small cruisers demand. For everyday riders, that meant fewer adjustments and less mess, which is part of why so many Viragos survive decades without major issues. The design also deserves credit. With its low 28-inch seat height, cruiser-style ergonomics, and compact frame, the 535 fits a wide range of riders. Beginners loved it because it felt accessible, while smaller-statured riders appreciated that it wasn't overwhelming. At around 401 pounds wet, it's heavier than something like a Rebel 250, but still nimble enough for city traffic. And thanks to the V-twin character, it has that classic cruiser rumble that makes you feel like you are riding some big-shot motorcycle. Fuel economy is another plus, with the Virago often returning 50-55 miles per gallon. Combine that with a comfortable upright seating position, and it's easy to see why so many riders used it for commuting or weekend rides. Long highway stints could expose its limited power, especially when compared to 750C or 1,100C cruisers. But for most people, the 535 struck a good balance between fun and practicality. Where the Virago really shines is longevity. Owners have put tens of thousands of miles on these bikes with nothing more than routine maintenance. The air-cooled V-twin is tough, the shaft drive keeps things simple, and Yamaha's reputation for bulletproof reliability does the rest. If you find a well-kept one under $1,500, you're getting a bike that can still deliver plenty of riding power. Number 5. Honda Shadow 500. The Honda Shadow 500, also known as the VT500C, is one of those overlooked gems in Honda's lineup. Produced in the mid-1980s, it didn't get as much spotlight as the bigger 750C Shadow, but it carved out its own place among riders looking for a dependable mid-size cruiser. Today, it's the kind of bike that often slips under the radar in the used market, which means if you come across one in good condition for under $1,500, you might have just scored yourself a solid ride with tons of character. At its core, the Shadow 500 runs on a 491 cubic centimeters liquid-cooled V-twin engine, a design Honda was known for refining in that era. It makes about 50 horsepower and 31 lb-ft of torque, which is pretty impressive for a mid-size cruiser of its time. Unlike some entry-level cruisers, this engine isn't just about getting you from point A to point B, it's got enough grunt to handle freeway speeds comfortably, while still being manageable for newer riders. It's also paired with a 6-speed transmission, something not every cruiser of the era offered, giving it smooth power delivery across different riding conditions. Styling-wise, Honda nailed the look. The Shadow 500 carried classic cruiser proportions with a low-slung seat, pullback handlebars, and a teardrop tank, but it wasn't as bulky or intimidating as the larger displacement cruisers on the road. At about 470 pounds wet, it struck a balance between stability and ease of handling. Add in the low seat height, and it quickly became a comfortable option for shorter riders or anyone looking for a cruiser without the bulk. On the road, the Shadow 500 delivers a smooth, forgiving ride. The liquid-cooled V-twin keeps things running reliably without overheating, and Honda's reputation for rock-solid engineering shines through here. Riders often talk about how durable these engines are. Many examples from the 80s are still running strong with minimal issues, provided they've been given basic care. The shaft drive is another huge bonus, removing the headache of constant chain adjustments and making the Shadow one of the more low-maintenance options in its class. Fuel economy is respectable too, often hitting around 45-50 miles per gallon, which means it won't drain your wallet at the pump. It may not have the raw presence of a Harley or the long-distance comfort of a touring cruiser, but for city rides, weekend cruises, or even light commuting, the Shadow 500 holds up surprisingly well even today. If you can land one for $1,500 or less, you're getting a piece of Honda engineering that blends reliability, style, and just enough power to keep things exciting without being overwhelming. For riders hunting a dependable budget cruiser, the Shadow 500 is a sleeper pick worth considering. Now, let's have a look at number 4, which is the Suzuki GZ2 150. The Suzuki GZ2 150 is one of those bikes that proves you don't need a big engine or a fat price tag to enjoy motorcycling, because for just $700, you can get one that is still of good quality. Designed with beginners in mind, it first rolled out in the late 90s and quickly found a fan base among riders who wanted an approachable, no-nonsense cruiser. It doesn't try to be flashy or intimidating. Instead, it leans into simplicity, comfort, and reliability. Under the tank, the GZ2 150 runs a 249 cubic centimeter air-cooled single-cylinder engine that produces about 20 horsepower and 13 pound-feet of torque. On paper, those numbers might not turn heads, but the bike was never meant to. Instead, Suzuki built it to deliver smooth, predictable power that helps new riders build confidence. Paired with a 5-speed transmission, it has enough muscle to cruise comfortably at city speeds and even stretch out onto the highway, though it's more at home on back roads and around town rides. The carbureted engine is also simple to maintain, which adds to the GZ250's appeal for budget-conscious riders. When it comes to styling, the bike carries the cruiser DNA with its low seat height, pullback bars, and laid-back ergonomics. Weighing in at just around 331 pounds wet, it's incredibly manageable. You can flat-foot it at stops, handle tight turns without stress, and pick it up easily if it ever tips over. That makes it one of the friendliest entry-level cruisers of its era. The comfort-focused design extends to its saddle too, which many riders say feels surprisingly plush for such a small bike. Fuel economy is another area where the GZ2 150 shines. Riders often report anywhere from 60 to 70 miles per gallon, which means you can rack up plenty of miles without worrying about frequent fill-ups. Add in Suzuki's reputation for building durable small displacement bikes, and you've got a machine that often runs trouble-free for years with just basic upkeep. The truth is, the GZ250 isn't built for speed demons or long-distance touring, but for beginners, commuters, or anyone who just wants an easy, reliable cruiser to enjoy weekend rides. It hits the mark perfectly. Number 3. Suzuki GS4 150. The Suzuki GS4 150 is one of those underrated gems from the late 70s and early 80s that proves you don't need modern electronics or flashy tech to have a dependable ride. It was designed as a mid-size standard bike, perfect for commuting, weekend rides, or just learning the ropes, and it still holds up surprisingly well today if you're patient enough to find a solid used model under $1,500. Underneath the simple styling lies a 448 cubic centimeter air-cooled 4-stroke parallel twin engine. It produces roughly 38 horsepower, enough to handle highway speeds without feeling strained, while still being beginner-friendly. The engine is known for its reliability. Many owners have reported 60,000 miles or more without major issues, provided the bike is maintained properly. Like many Suzukis of the era, it uses dual carburetors and a 5-speed transmission, which are straightforward to service even for someone new to working on bikes. What makes the GS4 150 stand out is its balance of performance and simplicity. It's light enough to feel nimble in city traffic, yet stable on open roads. The upright riding position, comfortable seat, and relaxed handlebars make it a bike you can ride all day without feeling cramped or fatigued. While the suspension is basic by modern standards, it does a decent job of soaking up bumps, and brakes, usually a single front disc and rear drum, are sufficient for everyday use. Another strong point is durability. The GS4 150 was built during a time when motorcycles were simpler and over-engineered for longevity, so parts can be found if looked for, and routine maintenance like valve adjustments, carb cleaning, and chain care will keep it running smoothly for years. Fuel economy is solid, usually around 50-55 miles per gallon, making it a practical option for commuters or riders on a budget. Of course, it isn't flashy. Modern features like fuel injection, ABS, or high-tech suspension are absent. But if you're looking for a reliable, affordable, mid-size standard that can handle nearly anything you throw at it, the GS4 150 is a surprisingly versatile option. Grab one in good condition for under $1,500, and you've got a bike that's not only functional but also has a bit of vintage charm to enjoy on every ride. Number 2. Honda Nighthawk 750. The Honda Nighthawk 750, produced from 1991 to 2003, is a perfect example of a motorcycle built for reliability and ease of use. At its heart is a 747 cubic centimeters air-cooled inline-4 engine, producing around 75 horsepower and enough torque to make city commuting or highway cruising effortless. The bike weighs roughly 472 pounds dry weight, which gives it stability on the road without feeling overly heavy for beginners. Its upright seating position and well-padded seat make long rides comfortable, while the handlebars and foot positioning are natural enough that you can ride for hours without fatigue. The suspension, though basic, handles bumps in city streets admirably, and the single front disc and rear drum brakes provide sufficient stopping power for most riders. Maintenance is straightforward. The Nighthawk's hydraulic valve adjusters and electronic ignition reduce the need for constant tweaking, and parts remain relatively easy to find. Fuel economy is respectable for a mid-sized cruiser, generally hovering around 45-50 miles per gallon, which makes it practical for daily commuting or weekend rides. What sets the Nighthawk 750 apart is how well it balances classic cruiser style with approachable performance. It's big enough to feel substantial on the road, yet manageable for a wide range of riders. The engine has a smooth, confident pull that makes both city streets and open highways enjoyable, and the bike's design still turns heads with its clean lines and understated aesthetic. Owning a Nighthawk is less about flashy features and more about enjoying the ride's smooth shifts, responsive handling, and that satisfying hum of a well-tuned 4-cylinder engine. For riders who appreciate a bike that's timeless, practical, and genuinely enjoyable to ride, the Nighthawk 750 hits a sweet spot that few other mid-size cruisers manage to reach. Finally, at number 1, we have the Kawasaki Ninja 500R. The Kawasaki Ninja 500R, sometimes called the EX500, is a motorcycle that has earned a reputation as one of the best all-around sport bikes for beginners and budget-conscious riders. Produced from the mid-1980s through the mid-2000s, it combined manageable size, reliable performance, and sporty styling, making it a favorite in the used market, especially for those looking for a bike under $1,500. At its heart is a 498 cubic centimeters parallel twin engine, liquid-cooled, with dual overhead cams and dual carburetors in earlier models. It produces roughly 50 horsepower and 31 pound-feet of torque, which is plenty for both city riding and open highways. What makes it special is how smooth and linear the power delivery feels. Twist the throttle, and the bike responds predictably, which is perfect for new riders who are still learning to manage acceleration and braking. More experienced riders also enjoy the surprisingly spirited ride it delivers, especially when leaned into curves on twisty roads. The Ninja 500R is light for its size, around 373 pounds wet, and the seating position is upright enough to be comfortable without feeling too relaxed. Suspension is competent, offering a balanced ride on city streets and highways, while dual front discs and a single rear disc provide solid stopping power. Many riders note that this bike feels like it punches above its weight, giving a sport bike experience without overwhelming beginners. Another strong point is durability. The engine and drivetrain are famously robust. With regular maintenance like oil changes, valve checks, and chain care, these bikes can easily rack up tens of thousands of miles. Fuel economy is good for a sport bike of its era, often in the 45-50 miles per gallon range, which makes it an economical daily rider. Overall, the Kawasaki Ninja 500R is a perfect blend of fun, reliability, and affordability. It's a bike that can serve as a long-term daily rider, a beginner's first sport bike, or even a weekend canyon carving machine. Finding a used one under $1,500 might require patience, but for riders who do, it's a bike that truly delivers years of dependable enjoyment. And there you have it, 10 motorcycles that prove you don't need a huge budget to own something reliable, fun, and built to last. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.